What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA Wise stream. It is Friday, Black Friday, if you will, November 29, 2019, day after Thanksgiving, obviously, and I am joined by the GOAT, the true OG of the WiseTake Nation, Stevie Brown. We got two, that's right. Oh, Stevie, I think you've become an OG at this point. You've been around for long enough. Can I officially?
Yeah, I think is this my third or second
We got to
year
be
now?
close to three. If we're not in the we got to be at least close to three. So
Yeah, it's somewhere
you
around
got
there.
Patio Joe, got the triple OG status. Paulie's the original. I got to come up with like but I think you've reached that status just based on like longevity. You know, a lot of turnover. You know how it is in this industry. But Stevie's a loyal guy. Stevie is a loyal guy. You guys can follow Stevie at Stevie Brown DFS. As we like to say, we like to get down with Stevie Brown. Stevie, how you doing, bro? How's your Thanksgiving?
Good, man, good. Thanksgiving was nice. It's nice to get a couple days off work too. NFL didn't do so well in the day, but it's always nice to get a little relaxation, hang out with the family, and just chill for a little bit. No NBA that day. It's more NFL slate. You get to relax a little bit between like games and everything. So it's nice to have a nice chill day sometimes, but back to the grind tonight.
Yeah, man. Me too. I actually had a good day in football, which was I didn't expect it because like football's football, but Thanksgiving Day for some reason I usually do dumb things and take dumb chances, and like Beasley was one of those chances this week that I felt like, is this dumb? And you know, but it ended up working out, and I ended up I mean, dude, I got the last 2 minutes of the game, the onside kick. The onside kick,
my
the Kamara
God.
right in front of you, but Kamara didn't want it bad enough because his team was winning. Onside kick, that knocked me from first place at $5,000 down to third place at $1,500. That little the series that happened after that.
Still a good day, but man, that's fucking brutal to lose on that.
Dude, I'm
That's
winning $5,000 a whole game, and then like they score, and I'm still surviving, and I'm like, oh wow, I survived that Ridley touchdown. And then once, because I was barely hanging on, and then once they got the onside kick, I was like, okay, that's it, I'm done, and I was right. So at least I was right. I like to be right about things, you know, one way or another. But yeah, Thanksgiving was cool, man. One of my favorite holidays, probably my favorite holiday for sure. You know why? Like I love Christmas too, but Christmas costs you money, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, so much. And my girlfriend's birthday is 3 days before Christmas, so I get slammed where it's like, you know how like people and girls are like, bro, like I can't get her the same present for Christmas and her birthday, different wrapping paper, different days, everything. So like I get slammed during the holidays for spending money.
I'm gonna tell you how I handled that, right? So my wife's birthday is real close to Valentine's Day. Her birthday's in February, so I get a little double slam too. So you know what I did? I got it back. We got married like 3 days before my birthday, so that she hits that double. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
so
man.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's how we do that.
You want to play games and have your birthday by Valentine's Day? All right, I got you. One up.
Yes. That's how we get down. You know what I mean? And we don't get mad, we get even. You know what I mean? This is
Lost the battle, but I'm winning the war.
That's it. All right, man. We got a huge slate. It looks like we don't have a ton of awesome value. We have things opened up, but it's more like primary players getting more minutes, more usage. We know about the Philly situation. That's like the main, I think, that people are going to try to get some value from. We're hoping things open up, but as of right now, considering it's a huge slate, the pricing on both sides, more so on FanDuel, but on both sides, has come to a point where like building lineups aren't all that exciting. Normally a big slate, the one benefit is it's so much fun. There's so many different ways to go. But on a slate like this where you don't have the value to make things work.
Absolutely
right?
not today.
Well, on slates like this, we don't have the value to make things work. It's just different. You know what I mean? It's just not as, it becomes more difficult. Nobody wants to think. Nobody wants to think that hard when you're building a team. You want to be able to build some teams and just move on with your life, win all the money, and that's it.
We have zero appealing value. Absolutely none that's good. On FanDuel too, which sucks. Like usually, typically slates where there's no value, you look for the mid tier a little more. And on FanDuel, like where the only places I kind of like my value is where I like my mid tier a lot and kind of upper tier too. So it's tough to play all those guys, which you can be like the shooting guard position. Like I like a lot of the mid tier. Plus, there's a couple guys I'm taking shots on the lower end. But it's a real ugly slate tonight.
Completely agree. All right, man. Let's go ahead and jump into it. We'll go position by position like we always do. We're gonna start off with with point guards at the top. Are there any point guards? I know we decided that you're primarily playing on FanDuel, so you'll talk about FanDuel more while I talk about DraftKings more. Talk to me about the pay up point guard options on FanDuel. Which ones you're looking to use?
So the main four guys I have here highlighted are, of course, always gonna be Doncic, Trae Young, Lillard, and Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, while he doesn't look like he's been the best so far this year, and honestly doesn't even have that appealing of a floor, especially given the 9K price tag on FanDuel almost. Uh, I'm willing to take a shot on 5% ownership and hope maybe he falls into a couple more stocks and everything against a weaker Knicks defense. And then up top, obviously we said Luka is always going to be plug and play every slate. It's just a lot more difficult to play him today, where we don't have the value to like play him and like another 12K Giannis or so, where it's usually possible. But like today, you're gonna have to sacrifice a lot if you want to get them both. Even if he does like, give you a great floor every night, the game's kind of appealing too. FanDuel pricing still stays strict, and at 12-2, it's super tough to play him. But again, like I said, nice matchup, and you'll never like tank your lineups, but can always like break the slate. And then the only other guy I'm looking at too, like I said, Lillard against a weaker Bulls defense. Another guy who doesn't really show that much of a floor anymore, but I'm trying to catch him at lower ownership compared to the rest of the studs. Like out of him, like Trae Young and Doncic, he's like by far the lowest owned there. And while he hasn't really gone off so far this year, he gets a decent matchup against that weak Bulls defense, and like, can always flash his ceiling too.
My bad, I was muted again. Yeah, I'm with you for the most part. There's not like I think Luka is my favorite. If I the more Luka I could get, if I'm trying to get anybody in, it's Luka, right?
Yeah.
Like, they got the highest total on the slate. He's got the highest ceiling, I think, of all this. I think outside of James Harden, he's got the high. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I cannot forget about Giannis. What I meant to say was I think Harden, Giannis, and Luka have the highest ceilings in the league. At least, like, I'm not saying LeBron and those guys couldn't go for 70 in the right situation, but more likely.
We just see it so much more often. Yeah,
exactly. So I think like Luka in a game that's projected to be pretty close, we know what his usage is. He would be the one I'd like to fit in the most, and I'm gonna try to get at least 30% of him, even on a slate without value. If we have value opening up, I'll crank that up to like 40, 50. I'm gonna try to be around 20, 30 anyway if I can. I say try because I'm trying to go. I want to make sure I get exposure to these studs because I know they're gonna be low owned, even though the optimal build as of now is probably more balanced. So with that said.
On FanDuel, I think he's going to be a lot higher owned than on DK too, because like on FanDuel, your value slots aren't really coming from point guard. Where like the lowest guy I'm really looking at, if I want to take shots in like Rondo maybe, but like other than that, I don't really like anybody else much below that. So I think you're going to get a lot more ownership between like some of the mid tier guys, which we'll hit on, like Rubio and maybe Conley, who are like fair priced on a slate where everyone seems like kind of more strict priced, and then like floating up top to like Doncic going all the way up.
No, I do agree with that. The only other one I'll save him for small forward. But yeah, as far as spend ups go, it's him, and then the only other guy really that I'll have like, any significant ownership. I'm gonna try to like separate these positions to match him up more to FanDuel. But Ben Simmons, obviously as you mentioned, the usage should increase. We're missing not just one, we're missing two starters from this squad. So we should see Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid especially. And Tobias Harris all see usage increases. So even though the Knicks aren't a team I love to attack, they're actually playing pretty good defense. They're playing really slow, but they've been really good against centers. So like I know Embiid's going to be chalk, and I'm a little hesitant with him just because of that. But I respect the usage. I respect the price. But I will have some Ben Simmons because of that. Because one of those guys should fucking go nuts, whether him, Tobias, or Embiid. At least one of them should go nuts because of the increase in usage and everything else. With that said, Stevie Brown, take us down to the mid tier.
So the only two guys who I have majority interest in for the mid tier on FanDuel at least could be Rubio and Mike Conley. Rubio coming back from injury, like I guess his minutes are still kind of question, but if he can get like 30 minutes in this decent matchup here, again where I don't love value here. And I think the pricing is really strict for the guys up top, outside like Doncic, who is super expensive, but even though he's priced appropriately, falling more so in line with like Rubio and Conley. Both these guys are in decent matchups. Conley's got a big pace boost against Memphis, who have been one of the bottom teams in terms of defense, one of the top teams in terms of pace. So that's always nice. And go ahead, you can always throw the revenge factor right out there too. And Rubio has been a fantastic perimeter player too. Biggest appeal with him, like I said, I think people are going to be off him. Really a couple things. His biggest appeal. First is going to be that mid-range price tag. Like I said, on a slate with no value, I think he holds a decent ceiling if he can get back to like his 30 to 32 minutes in closer games. It's a lot easier to play him without the value, and also I don't. So it's tough if you don't want to play the disgusting value and you're having trouble to get into Doncic. You're falling in line with like I think like what's gonna be most common builds is like either like Rubio or like Conley in cash games, and then one of guys like right around that range too. Like if you want to go like Ben Simmons, just hoping for some boost there or anything. I think he's gonna be super popular, and I'm just looking for point per dollar ceiling at the price tag. So I like Rubio a lot there. Of course, a lot of these guys have MP and DK too. So where I'm looking on DK, there's be a lot of guys shooting guard there, but Van Vliet's nice. A little bit slower matchup, but people are overlooking like the blowout from last game and like the how many minutes he really gets. Like he will play 40 minutes in a closer game, and for cash games, it's kind of nice on DK where you get that much of a minutes floor. But in terms of tournaments, I don't think he really brings his true ceiling. And then Malcolm Brogdon is always nice. Like, the matchup obviously super appealing. We do have a healthy Pacers team back though. On FanDuel, that 9K price tag is a little bit much for me, but the 8K DK pricing is super appealing there. I think it's going to price more towards his floor, and I'm kind of curious about the true ceiling he brings now with everybody healthy. But against the Atlanta team, it's hard to not want to play him on DK at the price tag.
Yeah, I agree. I think the mid range. It's not like, oh man, there's some slam dunk options, but there's definitely options. I think Ricky Rubio is definitely one of those guys. I think based on his price, he got 25 minutes in the last game. He's been dealing with back spasms. He also had 4 fouls in the last game, so I'm not sure how much of that was. I'm sure they were limiting him to a degree. But I'm not sure how much of that was limitation, how much of that was also like game script, foul trouble, all that stuff. So I'm with you. I think Rubio makes for a fine tournament option. I expect his ownership to be really low. I think Chris Paul on DraftKings, you could argue at 7K against New Orleans in a pace-up spot. New Orleans just not playing any defense. I'm not a huge Chris Paul guy, but I think between him and Shea Alexander is kind of interesting, considering that they're going to be so paced up. And yeah, I'm with you. There's a few guys in this mid-range, and there's a few guys in Value Town, which we're going to talk about in a second. Not a ton, but a couple. Talk to me about Value Town.
Well, first too, I think we mentioned Zeller news earlier. Like if Zeller is out, he's one of the true value players that kind of opens up Biombo. That's going to center later. But the other bigger news we're waiting on too is Satoransky's a game time decision. If he's going to be out, it brings a lot more appeal to Chris Dunn, who's like a fair 4K price tag on DK, FanDuel, and a little bit cheaper on FanDuel on DK. Switch it around. But if Sato's out, if his minutes go up to like 25 plus, definitely gonna have a lot more appeal for him there. Again, it's gonna be some of our only, like, it doesn't become like a slam dunk play, but again, we're kind of void of value right now. It definitely opens up a bit for him. Otherwise, like, I don't love much at all for his point guard value. There's some people who have MPE that I'll hit on for a shooting guard on FanDuel, but only other guy I'm really looking at is, like I said before, Rondo down low. It's not like he's not a slam dunk play either, but it's the amazing matchup. It's the possibility of playing 25 minutes and the ceiling he can give you in 25 minutes in this matchup. So where I see him at 1% owned on FanDuel, I definitely want to be overweight on him there.
Yeah, two of the guys I got my eye on. I mean, you're right with the Bulls value. If Satoransky does miss, we'll have to react, and that's going to open up a lot of things for some of those guys like Chris Dunn, Arcidiacono, and maybe even Shaq Harrison, who's probably going to start already. We know last year he played some point guard as well, so we'll be waiting for that. If we don't get any of that, I am looking at Isaiah Thomas on DraftKings. He's 4,200. He hasn't been played very well. But he's a shooter. Not sure what to expect from Washington. They're big underdogs on the road. It is the Lakers. They've had some magical games against LeBron's teams in the past. That's come down to a ton of 3-pointers. I'd be a little more optimistic of this game staying close, I think, if they were playing in Washington. But with that said, Isaiah Thomas is really, really cheap. His usage is consistently in the mid-20s or so. And if you're gonna score against the Lakers, it's gonna be hard to do with a big, right? Like they got a really big team, man. They're very, very big. Anthony Davis down low between Dwight Howard and McGee. they got a ton of size clogging it up. So the way you're going to have to score on the Lakers is to take those threes and take those shots, and I think IT2 is a candidate to help. There's a few guys that got McRae, Beal, all these guys will contribute, but Isaiah Thomas is the cheapest, and so I think there's an expectation that's not that high for him to give you that 6x value. And the other one is Derek White. I'm not huge on White. I prefer Isaiah Thomas, but he's also 4,200. We're expecting him to start. He's been starting over Murray. The Clippers are one of those teams that these other teams try to get up for a little bit. We see like the Lakers, the Clippers, some of these teams come to town, these guys with championship expectations, and these, teams typically step up and play a little bit better. So maybe we see that from the Spurs. Those are really the main two value guys, unless we get some of that Bulls stuff opening up with Satoransky. With that said, Stevie, take us over to shooting guards up top, if there's any guys up top.
So, I mean, I'll consider it up top here, like 7K plus. There's a few guys I like here a lot. First, it's gonna be Drew, Graham, and Zach LaVine are the biggest three I'm looking at here. Graham's been getting like consistent minutes now. He's getting a start. His production's not the same since before when he was coming off the bench, but we saw him like torch Detroit a couple games already this season. So, they're like, well, they don't play the fastest pace Detroit. Their defense is pretty bad too. Him and Levine are both pretty interesting too. They're both two guys that hold super high ceilings in that mid range. And like I said, I'm gonna keep slamming at this whole entire show. But when we don't have a ton of value, I'm looking a lot more at these mid range guys who can like break the slate. Because they're a lot like I'm a lot more comfortable playing them than have to sacrifice and play a lot more ugly value elsewhere. So I'm gonna get a lot of Levine and Graham. Levine's when he's hot, he's hot. When he's making the shots, he'll shoot a million of them, and that's the kind of guy I wanted to slate with, who has the super kind of volatility and is coming on really low owned. I see only 4% on FanDuel right now, and when he does have that 50 plus potential, I'm always gonna be diving for that in the mid range there. And Drew too. Drew's been so much of a better player without Lonzo on the floor. He's been pretty consistent. He'll get minutes in the high 30s to even 40 minutes or so in closer games. It's a decent matchup for him, like a decent micro matchup. So Levine, Graham, and Drew are really the three guys I'm looking at most. Throw Beal and McCollum in there just because they're two other lower owned guys that can have ceiling games. McCollum not so much, but Beal, he plays 40 minutes a game. It's a super ugly position, and like he's 3K cheaper than some of the other studs on the slate, like Giannis and Doncic. So while he doesn't have that true ceiling or won't hit it as often, he's definitely a lot easier to play, and you don't have to sacrifice your lineup elsewhere for him.
On DraftKings, I don't even know where to draw the line. I guess I'll cut it at like 7,500 for DraftKings up top. I'll start with Bradley Beal, who's the most expensive at 9,400. He's more expensive than Kawhi Leonard. I'll have a sprinkle of Beal. He's probably the only one that's that high over here that I will have. Just because, again, if that game stays close, it's hard to envision Beal didn't have something to do with it. We just mentioned one of the ways you're gonna get to the Lakers is gonna have to be with a guard, or a guy that can shoot at least, because they are, pretty big. So I'll have some, nothing over the top, but I will have some for the sake of that game potentially staying close. I think that after that, my favorite shooting guard on the slate is Devin Booker. 7,900. I know Rubio's back, Baines is back, all that stuff. I think that maybe may help facilitate the offense, make him move a little bit more, maybe open things up a little bit for Booker. Take some pressure off him a little bit. It gets doubled so much. Dallas is not good defensively, that we know. Neither is Phoenix. This game's got the second highest total on the slate, and it's got a 2-point spread, so they expect this game to be pretty competitive. Dallas has been really bad against wings. You mentioned that we don't have that great value, and I think that the mid-tier, there are a few strong plays that you can get some pretty good teams without the value if it never opens up. If it opens up, we'll unleash and load up on some studs and, go stars and scrubsy on FanDuel. You kind of have to anyway, because FanDuel is just such a stars and scrubs site. It's almost impossible to do a balanced team at times. But I think Booker's my favorite. More of a stance thing, right? Like it's not like, oh, this guy's out, this guy's out. In fact, guys are back in. It's just more of a stance. I know this is a team he's played well against in the past, and there's a reason because they can't guard wings. Scoring dominant wings usually do the dirty to Dallas, and I expect Booker to do the same tonight, and the prices come down. Drew Holiday's another one. I'm surprised. I mean, he goes out there, goes for 60 DraftKings points, and they lower his price on DraftKings to 7-8 from 8-1. So he kind of feels kind of somewhat optimal in this particular perspective now. I know the last game probably he got up for, but he's projecting really well at this point. So, again, I still prefer Booker, but I'll have some of him. Last guy I'll mention, Donovan Mitchell. One thing we like, Steve, you alluded to it when you were talking about Mike Conley. We like guards against Memphis, scoring guards, guys who are going to go ahead and do that thing. And I think that Donovan Mitchell is that guy. I think last time they played, Donovan Mitchell had a pretty good game. But I like him the least more because that game is not as attractive. But, yeah, I like the Devin Booker. Take us down to the mid-tier.
So I mentioned like the mid tier with like Levine, Graham, but only the other two guys underneath them who I have some interest in, Fournier and Schroeder. The Pelicans kind of want to run smaller lineups out too, and you see that the Thunder also want to do the same so far this year now too. In the game where we can already expect like Schroeder to get around like 30 minutes or so, like he has like 35 plus minute upside, and he's one of those guys who can go for like 40 plus in 35 minutes or so. The matchup's amazing, of course, against the Pelicans, who play super fast and aren't the best defensively. So, for a lower owned guy in the mid range, I definitely wanted to go overweight on him. Fournier was a lot more appealing when Aaron Gordon was expected to not play, but we got news he's going to be playing and starting now. Because the biggest thing here, like, still he will see the minutes and everything, but he's been playing 38 to 40 minutes a game now. His last few without like Aaron Gordon in, and kind of a snowball effect from Vooch too. But his shot volume's been there more than anything. Minutes are always nice, but seeing the shot volume over the last three is even nicer. Like 23, 22, 16 field goal attempts. Add that with the minutes, then there's a lot like room for a solid floor there. But again, like it's not the best matchup. It's kind of ugly of a game, and I think he's kind of lacking a ceiling. So if you're looking to play him in FanDuel cash games, go ahead. But I wouldn't really want to go overweight on him in tournaments where he's one of the chalkiest players on the slate at 22% owned right now in FanDuel. Yeah, I mentioned like Levine and Graham before. I'm high on them, but otherwise, FanDuel, that mid tier, super ugly. DK, you can take a couple more punts on guys. Like if you want to play like a cheaper Alec Burks, Glenn Robinson. Like for some reason, I'm always playing them every night, so I don't mind throwing them around in some of your lineups too. But I mean, other than that, that's really it. Maybe Lamb if you want to take a shot at him on DK. Not really FanDuel because of the matchup and the cheap price tag there, but that's all I'm really seeing for shooting guard mid range.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like the guys we had talked about up top again. In the mid range, I'm not all that excited about either. I think Lou Williams and DeMar DeRozan are two guys that I could see myself getting some exposure to. More so Lou Williams, just because he's been playing really well and his usage has looked awesome. I did get an update. It looks like Cody Zeller was ruled out. So it looks like we're gonna have the Bismack Biyombo value again. In fact, he's cheaper this time around.
That's amazing on FanDuel, especially because like there wasn't a ton of centers I absolutely loved. Like I have Thomas Bryant. Well, we'll hit that later, but I'm locking him in every single lineup now. And not.
It's definitely going to open things. I mean, it's going to definitely own a lower ownership over there on guys like Embiid and all those other guys too. So there's things to consider.
For damn sure, yeah.
Shout.
And it helps get like more. Well, you'll definitely see a chalkier.
Luka just got more popular.
Luka and Giannis now, where like everyone's playing down at center, and they'll become a lot more chalky.
Agreed. Other than that, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like you had mentioned, I'm interested in. He hasn't played well. Last time you saw New Orleans, he went for 42 DraftKings points. Hasn't been the same lately, but we know he's got the potential. Devontae Graham, I never get this guy right, but he just did the dirty to Detroit. I would imagine that people are going to play him again. Listen, the guy's usage looks good. He's getting assists. He's the reason Terry Rozier isn't like considered a superstar right now, because he's just going out to make Terry look like a bitch. You know what I mean? Over and over and over again. But, yeah. Stevie, take us down to Value Town.
So I think this is where it kind of gets interesting. The three guys I'm looking at here are, on FanDuel at least, they're Hart, McRae, and Korkmaz. McRae's really so Korkmaz is coming up almost 20% owned, and we know not just the super volatility he has, but like he's not the best basketball player. Like he has to have super high shot volume, hopefully fall into some stocks, and be making his shots to really just make value. I got it super cheap on DK, and it was tough when we didn't have true value before, even though we have Biombo now, and he's gonna be very popular. But then I liked McRae as a kind of a 1-for-1 pivot there. He's been getting a lot of minutes in that second team for the Washington now, and he's a better per minute player. I think he has around the same floor with a higher ceiling. He was projected before this Biombo news 0.1% owned compared to Korkmaz 17% owned. Obviously, those are going to change a lot now because we got actual decent value. But Korkmaz is still going to come pretty chalky. I'd rather like come off him, play like maybe a Scott or Thibault off that team, and play more McRae instead of Korkmaz on FanDuel. And the other guy I'm looking at is Josh Hart. It's tough with pretty much everyone healthy there. Like we got Ingram, Drew, Alonzo's out too, which should help with his minutes, but not really as much with the usage. We saw earlier in the year, even when he was getting like 30 minutes and below, he was putting up absolute monster games, barring there was some injuries there. But we've seen plenty of like 30 plus games from him in around 30 minutes or so. Like I'm figuring like 20, 30 minutes tonight too, and a decent matchup. So it was actually cheaper on FanDuel than DK. I didn't want to take some shots on him for some value with a decent ceiling.
Yeah, I think the Furkan Korkmaz Thibault situation is definitely interesting. Maybe it's not as big of a deal now that we have Bismack, but it's on FanDuel. I think it was a bigger discussion. On DraftKings, the mid tier was so strong that you didn't have to play them if you didn't want to. You could have easily went around them. But on FanDuel, you were kind of like forced into this, at least picking one almost, because the value was so ugly.
Yeah.
Now I still think one of these guys is going to help you on FanDuel more. I'll have some on DraftKings. I think I'm higher on Thibault because I think with O'Quinn and Horford out, I think they're going to be low on bigs. And I think that Thibault is more the rebounder, like the guy that can help with boards, that kind of stuff. Whereas Furkan, I think, is a little bit more scoring dependent. And let's be real, I don't think either of these guys are taking a ton of shots, right? I think Simmons and Tobias and
yeah, they're both
the
like
ones that we're going to shoot.
Yeah.
So I'm not over the top. I think Thibault I prefer a little bit more, and that's only because he's capable of getting rebounds. I'm not crazy about either of them, especially now that we have this newfound value that was just placed on our lap. Aside from that, man, like I'm with you. Like I wasn't too crazy about the value over here. We'll go over to small forwards and take it to the top.
Yeah, small forward there actually is a decent top range right here. On FanDuel at least, like I'll go 7K up. We have Giannis, LeBron, Paul George, and Siakam, who I'm looking at most. Paul George is kind of the guy I'll be on the least because with everyone healthy there's a lot to go around. It's more of a lottery with everyone between like Lou Will, Montrez on the second unit, and like Kawhi and Paul George. And he definitely did get priced up. It was a lot easier to play him when he was around like 8K or so coming back, but now at almost 10K, super expensive, and the matchup's not that great. So him, if I'm do go heavier on him, it's solely just an ownership play, and that's pretty much it. LeBron's coming in super chalky, and rightfully so. He's over a grand less than Giannis on FanDuel too, and gets that nut matchup against the Wizards. And him and AD are completely the focal point of that offense. He's been playing consistent minutes around like 35 plus. It's kind of intimidating thinking if this game actually does stay close, but you got to imagine, like I said too, when the bulk of the offense is kind of between AD and LeBron being the focal points, even if he gets like 30 minutes in what is going to be like more of a blowout, and it's like a 10-point game isn't really that much of a blowout, he still should be getting like 50 DKP or in around that time. And I think if the game does blow out, it kind of is like him and AD's back, so not really too worried about him. I think he only has upside at that price range and not really downside, unless the game does come to some super blowout. But it's not something I usually try to predict, and a 9.5-point spread doesn't really scare me off him. So LeBron's going to be one of my favorites. And then Giannis, I loved a lot too. Like I said, like he brings an insane floor every single game. And in close competitive games when he's going to see around like 35 plus minutes, he always brings like an 80-point ceiling or so. Before it was a lot more tough to play him We didn't have value. It was a lot more difficult to play like him and Luka lineups, but maybe the Biombo news helps now if you want to squeeze like Biombo, Dybul, and Korkmaz in to get those two and not the rest of your lineup being tanked too. And then Tobias Harris can be super choky on FanDuel, and rightfully so. It brings a lot of mid-range upside at 7K there. With a lot of the shot volume being gone, he should be a guy that should see some benefit there, especially like Ben Simmons' shot volume doesn't really change. Like he's not like an offensive power, so I think it falls more in the hands of like Embiid and Tobias Harris. And if he's going to play like 35 plus minutes in this game, which is again like projected to be a closer game, like 6.5 points versus the Knicks at home, isn't really enough to scare me off them. So I think Tobias Harris could be one of my favorite plays on FanDuel.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on Tobias Harris. Going to the top, Giannis, 12K on DraftKings. He got the 70, 80 point potential. It's there. He's playing Cleveland. The game's in Cleveland, which is a benefit for Cleveland, but Cleveland has just been so awful. Maybe Kevin Love finally gets shit going and they hang in there, but I find myself wanting to pick Luka more because I just think that game is it's just better. But with that said, I certainly like Giannis. LeBron James, I also like a little bit more than Giannis, mainly because, again, I like that game. I like the pace of it. I like everything about it. I like a defense on the Washington side. Concerned about blowout value, not going to go crazy, but I'll have more. I'll probably have a little more LeBron than Giannis, more of a bias towards that game and just wanting to have higher ownership on that game. And just kind of pray that like LeBron comes in low owned and like say I get like 20% LeBron and that game goes to OT. And now all of a sudden LeBron's going for 70 something. Just like more of a potential thing, but really I'm not picking LeBron over Giannis. I'm picking Luka over Giannis because the way the prices are. After that, I'm okay with some of these guys like PG. I actually like Brandon Ingram a little bit. I'm not gonna take a huge stand on him, but I just feel like after the last game, I mean he was low in last week in the last situation too, even a revenge spot. But I know his price is up, but I feel like people will levitate more towards Drew because I certainly did. And I can see Ingram kind of taking that back and like reminding everybody that in the beginning of the season before Ingram got hurt, Ingram was the one that was kind of dominating the usage. So with that said, I will have some Brandon Ingram, even though I don't love the price. I'll kind of just more of a game theory situation. Paul George. Paul George, 8.8. I mentioned a little expensive, but between him and Kawhi, he's just been the one. Stevie, take us down to the mid-range.
So before we got to Biyama News 2, I love picking on a lot of these guys who do have some upside in the mid-range here for small forward. Those guys being like Kelly Oubre, Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan's a guy who goes like underlooked every single slate. Plays a ton of minutes. He doesn't just see shot volume, but he's an amazing shooter too. So he usually makes most of his shots. Price around the same, but of course he gets to add a 3-point bonus on DK. And being in that pace of matchup against the Grizzlies, who are, we both said before, super fast pace, like top 6 in the NBA right now, and bottom tier for defense, it's always great where he's only 6'6", and like I think like 30 is his floor here, and he has a lot more upside than that. So I like him for lower owned play. And yeah, like a lot of those fringe guys I was talking about before, who just carry some upside. So between like Kelly Oubre, Burks, Glenn Robinson, I've been taking some shots on too because for some reason he decides to go off sometimes. And when we didn't really have value, he brought some upside in like that lower tier. And OG Anunoby too, plays a ton of minutes, and that's base appeal from him. We've seen him go for like show a ton of upside in similar minutes too. Where he's cheaper, he brought that mid-tier upside where it was didn't really want to scratch down for like that worse value in small forward for FanDuel like Dybul, but at those guys most, I love Bojan, probably OG after that, and then Oubre, Burks and Glenn Robinson a lot more fringe, but they do have some upside too.
Yeah, this is a position that I felt like on DraftKings was deeper up top. The one guy, it's hard for me on DraftKings with Tobias Harris being 6'4". It's hard to like anyone else more than him. I agree that Bojan and Oubre would probably be the two guys I look at, but it's hard not to like maybe Marcus Morris, who's got a good history against Philly, but in general, Tobias Harris at 6,400, he's probably my favorite 76er today. More of more of a stance thing. It seems like people are going to Embiid than Simmons, and I like both of those spots. We'll talk about Embiid at center, but I think that Tobias could be his night, man. You know, he's gonna have like Julius Randle defense and all that. Like, come on, you know what I mean? Take us down to Value Town.
Oh man, Value Town here isn't that pretty. It's Dibble, who like isn't appealing. Like I hate playing guys who are so stock reliant. Like for him to even hit like value, where like FanDuel min price is 3.5, like he needs like three of his stocks, like between like steals and blocks and everything too. Like he doesn't see shot volume. Even like his rebound assist numbers are like non-existent. You better hope like if you're playing him, he falls into like plenty of stocks. And like before, it was better because it wasn't even about like what he does for you, but it's more about what he helps you fit on FanDuel. But I think the Biombo news kind of lightens it up. So I might just fade him as a whole because I don't think he really holds upside to really break the slate, unless he does fall into like another 6 stock game, which is kind of rare, especially considering he did it in only 20 minutes. And like just kind of let the field die on that hill while I kind of want to play the two other pivots I was looking to off him. Again, that guys are really slam dunk plays, but Kenrich Williams, when he plays minutes, he always does have upside. Does a little bit of everything too, and if he's going to be playing 30 plus minutes in these games at 4K, I want to get my shares of him. That's really it. Before I was looking at Dorian Finney-Smith as a super fringe play for some value, but man, I can't convince myself to play him, and I think Biombo, like I said before, helps a lot where I don't have to sacrifice and play super ugly guys like that, so I'm more off him now.
These chicks don't even know the name of your band. I like what you said about OG. I think he's definitely viable. He's 4,900 on DraftKings, so technically qualifies for value, I think. Shaq Harrison is kind of a coin toss. So he started the second half in the last game when what's his name, Hutchison got hurt, and then but then he ended up playing 7 minutes. So I don't really understand like what they gave Valentine 5 minutes, they gave Cornette like 10 minutes. So I guess there's some, I don't know, maybe they're getting away from Shaq, but it could have been a matchup thing also. If Satoransky's out, that'll solidify Shaq's role, I think, a bit more, but he's 3,700, someone you can't consider. I expect him to start, though we haven't gotten an official lineup. I think that Kyle Kuzma, always an interesting value play, nothing great, and this is why we kind of needed the Bismack to open up, because it's just not a ton. They're all mediocre at best type plays. Kenrich Williams, another one. With that said, you can play Tybal here, so I guess you could just go min price punt if you wanted to do that. But it's pretty ugly down here considering you have Tobias Harris and some pretty good options up top. Stevie Brown, take us over to power forwards up top.
Yeah, power forward. I'm really only looking at guys up top. Like I'm gonna be absolutely dead for this conversation once you get to like mid range and value. But it's 80. It's Sabonis on FanDuel, Porzingis or Blake on FanDuel, and I mean, if you want to pray you land a Kawhi game, because if it's a more competitive game, he's gonna play 35 plus. He can get you like 50 plus, of course, but I don't want to play that 10K price tag. But I'd much rather play the guys like AD, LeBron, Doncic, Luka, all those guys who are a little bit more, of course, different positions. But I would rather play a grand cheaper Sabonis than Kawhi tonight. I'd rather go 3K down for Blake over Kawhi. Like Blake, his biggest problem all year has been rebounding. Like his shot volume's still there. He's really doing everything else, but like the rebounding numbers aren't there. And he gets the matchup against a weaker Charlotte defense that's bad at rebounding too. So I definitely think that helps his ceiling. We've seen the minutes trend up a little bit from starting at like 23 to like he's sitting around like 32 or so now. So maybe after a couple games, a couple days off, again, if he can get up to like 34 or so, it only helps his case. And at the mid-range price tag on FanDuel, I think he holds a lot of upside for the price tag there. Yeah, Sabonis too. Like everyone is healthy, but like he is a guy who's gonna perform day in and day out regardless. He'll still get his mids like every day. That's fine. He scores, he rebounds, he does a little bit of everything. The matchup, of course, is amazing against Atlanta too. So I like Sabonis a lot on FanDuel. I mean, other than that, that's really it. And there goes most of my player pool in FanDuel because there's no guys in like that mid range or below I like.
Fuck, did it again. Yeah, it's definitely one of them. Like the top is kind of more stacked than anything else. Looking at it, boy. So Anthony Davis, I expected to be one of the more popular studs. Number one, the matchup is good against Washington, but more so because on DraftKings he's 10K. It's just him going for 60 is the 6x, whereas 60 for Doncic, LeBron, that's not even 6x. So it's like I expected that to be the case. Maybe and with Bismack opening, it's not like we have 2 or 3 guys now. Like I still think he'll be high, but I like the spot as well. I always have 30 to 40% AD. Because he's got that kind of potential and he is underpriced. When you compare him to the upside he has, like he can go for 80. He can. I think he's more likely to go for 80. Maybe not this season, but last year you would have always picked him to go for 80 more often than LeBron. It just hasn't been the case this year. But I like Anthony Davis. With that said, the reason I can't go too heavy on him is because this position in general is pretty loaded. Like you said, Domantas Sabonis, Kristaps Porzingis is underpriced. I think on both sides for the matchup. He's in a really good spot against the Suns. Blake Griffin also in a really good spot against Charlotte. He just had his best game of the season against them in the last matchup. I'll stop it there just because of the pricing for DraftKings, the mid-range. Like a lot of these guys you talked about up top are actually in the mid-tier over here. I know you don't have a ton to say with the mid-tier on FanDuel, but I'll kick it to you anyway. It's going to be a nod.
I mean, on DK, like I also mentioned some of these guys MP on for the mid range now because again FanDuel, there's Jabari who's a fine price tag on DK, and I think his FanDuel pricing is fine too. It's 7K over there, but he sees a ton of minutes and he's him and Cher the complete focal point of the offense. Of course, the indie matchup's not super appealing, but where he holds that kind of upside, coming in a little lower owned, especially on FanDuel too, because he's a little more expensive. I'll definitely take some shots on him in that mid range on FanDuel, where I think that's kind of a range people will be avoiding. I think we're doing a lot of double payups on for power forward tonight there, but it's really it's Jabari for mid range, Blake, and I usually just play some Pascal just because you don't know when he's gonna go for 40 plus or so too. Before when it's kind of in that grouping of guys who are in the mid range who do have some ceiling. So I don't love him either though. It's really just Jabari, Blake, and I'll say on DK too. Thomas Bryant's fine. He's a center on FanDuel, but MP and DK, he's fine as price today for power forward.
Yeah, I think in the mid-range on DraftKings, power forward, Aldridge is probably one of my favorites. It's the Clippers. He hasn't been playing as much center because they've been playing Podol, but if any minutes he gets as a center against the squad is going to be good. So I'm willing to take a shot on the Magician. I'm fully expecting to get burned, but I'll probably have a decent stance on him. Because I think the matchup is just really good. We saw Jonas Valanciunas just go nuts. Biggs is a really good spot against the Clippers. It wasn't the case the last time these two team plays. Aldridge kind of did his disappearing act, but I expect him to at least have an opportunity to step up. I think Kevin Love is a guy that I'm not going to have a lot of, but it's kind of interesting. We know Milwaukee gives up a lot of threes. Kevin Love has great history against Milwaukee because that's really what he does is take threes. So depending on any limitation he may be on, he just played really shitty his last few games. But we know he's another one that goes for 40 on the reg, and it's just kind of underpriced for the potential. Last guy I'll talk about in the mid-range is Julius Randle, 6,400. He just projects well every day. He's not the same Julius Randle that we saw last year, but this is a guy that earlier this season went for 36 DraftKings points and was on pace to do a whole lot better and just kind of stopped. Until he got into foul trouble, it looks like. And then last year, man, this guy used to dust this team. So with Horford out, the matchup for him should have gotten a lot better. So I'll go with Julius Randle as the last guy. I'll talk about the mid-tier. Take us down to Value Town if there's anything.
Yeah, there's two guys here who are getting some noise, but one of them I don't really understand much. It's Boucher. He got a ton of benefit from the blowout last game, and while he's always been a permitted monster, I don't expect that kind of minutes again. It kind of was appealing to see 11 first half minutes because if you thought he was going to match in the second half and play 22 minutes at 4K price tags on both sites, that's super nice. But I don't see him getting 25 minutes on a consistent basis. I think a lot of it did come from the blowout. So if you want to take some shots in him, just because of the crazy upside he does hold, and if he's gonna be super high owned, you don't want to be completely dead from the field, go ahead. But it's a guy I'd rather be under on when pre Biombo ownership updates. I saw him at like 35% owned and the highest owned power forward on FanDuel. I think he's one of the highest owned players in general too. Only other guy too I'm looking at for the value there is Mike Scott. Not something I love, not something I probably won't even play now with Biombo, but he's a candidate to get a lot more minutes now with no Richardson, Horford. Suspected that he could be the possible backup five behind Embiid because if it's not Mitchell Robinson, you kind of can throw a smaller five on like Portis or like even like you see like Marcus Morris play five or whoever they're throwing out behind him. So that was kind of the case for him, but not a guy I want to be playing.
Yeah, I don't love the value down here. Hachimura is interesting, but he's gonna have his hands full with Anthony Davis. Chris Boucher, the minutes are just he was kind of out of the rotation. That last game got out of hand, so we got plenty of garbage time. Hard to rely on anything from there. High point per minute guy, he could do it at 30 and 15, but you don't even know if he's getting 15. So yeah, I'm not thrilled. With some of the value here. Stevie, take us over to centers.
Biombo, and that's it. FanDuel, it's Biombo, and that's it. Like you don't think twice about it. I'm locking him in now with value, and that's really it. But beforehand, there are some guys at the top tier. I was looking at Embiid, Gobert, Drummond, are all fine at the top end. All super expensive. I think Gobert would have been underowned, and still will be underowned, especially with the Biombo news now in that pace-up matchup where they don't really want to throw Valanciunas out for a lot of minutes, and he should dominate in pick and rolls whoever is meeting him at the rim. And on the flip side of that, Valanciunas was nice before Biombo news, of course, too, where if he ever got minutes, like you know the ceiling he has. And it's kind of a matchup where like warrants he does need to play a lot of minutes. A matchup with Gobert, so that could have been nice too. And then Mitchell Robinson on DK. I'll just go through the whole position there. I won't even go like tier by tier. But Mitchell Robinson on DK at that 4-4 price tag, I think is way too cheap. The biggest problem with him, of course, every single goddamn game is foul trouble. But if he can stay out of foul trouble at the 4-4 price tag there, he's a world of upside too. Like he can get you easily 30 plus. And like if you want to pair him and Biombo, of course, the locks of both your flex and your center spot. But you have a ton of high owned. I mean, you have a ton of like high ceiling like value plays there, and it opens up like the rest of the positions where you still can get in like you're not locked away from getting like Luka or Giannis or LeBron or AD over there still. Like you can still easily play them all with like 80s power forward eligibility too. Yeah, that's really it. For me on FanDuel, I think I have 5 guys in here. Embiid, Drummond, Gobert, J-Val, and Biombo. Mitchell Robinson's too expensive for me on FanDuel, but that DK pricing is absolutely egregious.
Yeah, I think Embiid, one of the more optimal plays on DraftKings at 9K. The only thing is the Knicks have actually been pretty good against centers. Even the last time Embiid played the Knicks, he was on pace to smash, but he finished with like a 48 because the Knicks adjusted and he just didn't finish out. So I'll have Embiid. I think he's optimal. I'd probably play him in cash, but on DraftKings where you can play him in Bismack, play one of them in utility. But in tournaments, I'm kind of with you. I like the idea of paying down a little bit better. I'll have a lot of Bismack. Mitch Robinson was my favorite value center before on DraftKings. You mentioned him. I love Mitch Rob. Could get into foul trouble, but if you think about it, if Taj Gibson's starting, he's going to at least get that beginning. He might see some time in the beginning without Embiid on the court, and he could really eat those guys up, man. They got nobody. They got no kind of size. Without Horford out, Kyle O'Quinn out, they got nothing. So I do like Mitch Rob down low. I think a couple of the cheaper guys are interesting. Dwight Howard is also kind of interesting against Washington, his former team. He's 3,900 over here on DraftKings. Only needs about 20 minutes to really post up big scores. We know Washington's not very good against bigs at all. Same thing you could argue with JaVale McGee, though his minutes have been a little more inconsistent. I actually like Brook Lopez in the mid tier. Not like a love for him, but Cleveland's been really bad against centers, and Lopez has always kind of done well. Thompson, sometimes gets forced to play around the perimeter where he's not extremely comfortable. He's not a huge perimeter player himself. And I think, Drummond is 9. Drummond's kind of interesting from a pricing standpoint. I feel like he's going to be so cheap. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sorry, it's cheap. He's 9-4. I feel like he's going to be low owned because you got Embiid at 9.
Yeah.
So people are going to go up there, see Embiid, stop there. So Drummond is kind of interesting to me from an ownership perspective when looking at the studs, just because I know he's going to be really low on. And it's an awesome spot against Charlotte. I mean, Bismack is not that big himself. He's a little better than Zeller probably defensively, but It's interesting, right? And that's some leverage right there. If Bismack busts, it's probably because a Drummond got him into foul trouble somehow and forced him out of the game.
Yeah.
Right? Just something to consider. With that said, we're going to do some top threes. Nation, if you have any questions, get them in the chat now. Those of you who are watching us on YouTube or anything else, we appreciate you. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notifications bell. You never know when we're going to go live doing the dirty and giving that DFS gold. And please like the video, man. The likes go a long way. Allow us to keep going. The likes go really, really help us out. So please like the video and subscribe. If you are subscribed to WiseTake.com and you're watching this from the NBA Wisestream page, that's where the chat is located. You can ask us questions. We're not looking at the questions from the YouTube channel just because we gotta look at the Wisestream because those are our people right there. So you know how that goes. Stevie, we're going to do top 3 studs, top 3 mid-tier, top 3 value. That's what we'll do. All right? It's going to get ugly for value.
Man.
Yep. Top 3 studs.
Luka, AD, and Giannis. It's so tough to play. Like I haven't really messed around since Biombo news yet, but I can imagine on FanDuel it's going to be super tough to play 2 of them, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Luka, number 1 for sure. Anthony Davis number 2 because of the price on DraftKings. Number 3, I want to say LeBron, but I do think it makes more sense, especially if AD's in there, to maybe switch that up and go with Giannis. Even at it's just a 12K. Then once it's over 12, it freaks me out. You know what I'm saying? Top 3 mid-tier plays.
Zach LaVine, Drew Holiday, and Blake Griffin with an honorable mention to Devontae Graham too.
Honorable mention, I love it. I'm gonna go with Devin Booker for sure, number 1. Tobias Harris, number 2, and I will go with I'll go with LaMarcus Aldridge, number 3. Get a little risky on that one. Top 3 value.
Oh man, is there even 3 I like? Biombo for sure, love him. Oh god, Shaq Harrison. I'm really hoping Satoransky's out too. He becomes a lot more appealing. And god, I'll say, fuck man, this is brutal. Especially on, I'll say I'll go Mitch Robinson on DK.
Mitch Rob on DK. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I'm gonna go with Bismack number 1 as well. I'm gonna go with Isaiah Thomas number 2, and I will go with Mitchell Robinson number 3. You can flip flop them either way. I like them both. Let's see if there's any questions from the nation. I don't see any questions in the chat. Again, those of you watching this live, we appreciate you. We have plenty of content coming out. Stevie is off from the article today to do the show, so Matty Ice, aka Shry Beezy, did the slate breakdown today, going over cash games, tournaments, going over cash game cores, tournament cores. Paulie D's cheat sheets are up for DraftKings as well. Cams for FanDuel have been up early, so hopefully we get an update on that. And then my core plays article will be out shortly after the show. So plenty of content to go do the dirty. Do the dirty to your neighbor for your neighbor does the dirty to you. That's what we say, Stevie. Hit him with a sell.
One day. I gotta practice it.
But you haven't been practicing. I know you haven't, Stevie. Practice. All right, that's gonna do it for us. I'll just check one more time, see if the nation thoughts on Whiteside. So interestingly enough, we didn't talk about Bam or Whiteside, who are both in phenomenal spots, and they just played against these teams and smashed. I think that for me personally, the prices have come up now, and that's been an issue. But I'll acknowledge, the same way that I skipped them. Everybody else will. I do prefer Bam to Whiteside just because I think that with Carmelo and Dame and McCollum, the usage is starting to get a little bit crowded. But he should get 20 boards today. Bam both. So here's another one. What do you think about Dunn as a pivot on DraftKings? I like Dunn a lot more if what's his name is ruled out, Satoransky. Of course, his ownership will go up. What are your thoughts on Dunn?
Exactly that. Like I'm only going to touch him if Satoransky gets ruled out, but if he is ruled out, then I'll have to be taking some shots at him.
For sure. Dirties will be done. Boom. All right. I don't see any other questions. Stevie, it's been real, man. I think tomorrow we got you on with Paulie D, bringing out some Saturday action. We got NFL coming on Sunday, man. One thing I will say, man, is this is just the best time for sports, man. It's just the best. You know what I mean? It's just the fucking best, isn't it?
Definitely. NBA, even like for viewing purposes too. Like we got college football and basketball going out
Right.
too, day games, everything. So it's always nice.
For Stevie Brown, for myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.